All right, so let's dive into this deep dive into the world of green tea. Today, we're taking a closer look at a YouTube video that a lot of you guys have been talking about. It's called I Drank Green Tea Daily, Watch What Happened. And it's from the channel Body Hub. Now, this video, it's packed with all these bold claims about the benefits of drinking green tea every single day. So we thought it'd be a good idea to break those down, see what the science actually has to say about them. And to do that, well, we've got our amazing expert here with us today.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be back. You know, it really is fascinating how green tea has become such a global phenomenon. The video actually mentions that it's the second most popular beverage in the world, right behind water.
Wow, I knew it was popular, but
Yeah.
second to water. That's wild. So before we get into the health claims and all that good stuff, can we just take a sec to kind of break down the basics of green tea for people who might not be familiar? Like, what sets it apart from all those other types of tea out there?
Absolutely. So all teas, whether we're talking black, green, or even oolong, they all come from the same plant, Camellia sinensis. But the magic really lies in how those leaves get processed. Now, green tea, it's special because it's minimally processed and not oxidized. This means it retains more of its natural compounds, like those potent antioxidants and polyphenols that we hear so much about.
Gotcha. So it's like the purest form of tea in a way.
Exactly.
Less processing, more of the good stuff. Okay, that makes sense. So let's get into those health benefits then. This video, it really plays up green tea's potential for weight loss. I mean, I've seen a ton of those fat-burning supplements out there that list green tea as like a key ingredient. Is there any truth to that?
Well, the video cites a study where folks who took green tea extract, they actually saw a 17% increase in what's called fat oxidation compared to those who didn't. That's pretty significant when you think about it. Fat oxidation, that's basically your body's way of burning fat for energy.
So if green tea can really help you burn more fat, that does sound like it could be a big win for weight loss, right?
It's definitely intriguing, but we got to be careful not to jump to conclusions. That study used green tea extract, which is way more concentrated than just your regular cup of green tea. So to really know if sipping on green tea can have the same effect, we need more research.
Okay, so green tea extract might be a fat-burning powerhouse, but we need more research on regular brewed green tea to know if it can really help us slim down. You mentioned earlier that you had some concerns about inflammation. Does green tea have any impact on that?
You know, that's a really important area to be thinking about because inflammation is linked to so many chronic diseases. And the video, it highlights this study on rats with rheumatoid arthritis, where green tea extract seemed to actually improve their symptoms. It's pretty exciting to think that something as simple as green tea could potentially help with a condition like that.
It really is exciting. I mean, chronic inflammation, it's linked to everything from heart disease to cancer. So could green tea be a real game changer in fighting inflammation?
It's definitely possible, especially since green tea is loaded with antioxidants, and those are known to combat inflammation. But before we go crowning green tea as the ultimate inflammation fighter, we need more human studies to back up those initial findings.
Makes sense. It's promising. But more data is always good. Now, the video, it also suggests that green tea could be beneficial for people with diabetes, like both in managing symptoms and maybe even preventing it in the first place. That sounds like a pretty big claim.
It is, but the video dives into a few key mechanisms that might explain how it works. First off, there's some evidence that green tea might help improve what's called insulin sensitivity. Now, this is huge because insulin, it's the hormone that allows your cells to use glucose for energy. And when your cells aren't responding to insulin as well as they should, that's when you start seeing blood sugar problems.
Right, and insulin resistance is a major factor in diabetes. So if green tea can really improve insulin sensitivity, that could be a huge help for people with diabetes or those at risk of developing it. What else does the video talk about?
Well, it also highlights some preliminary research suggesting that green tea, it might even offer some protection against damage to the pancreas. And that's the organ responsible for producing insulin. And of course, we can't forget those anti-inflammatory effects we were talking about earlier, which are also relevant to diabetes because, as you know, chronic inflammation, it's a key driver of the disease.
Whoa, it sounds like green tea's coming at diabetes from all angles. But is it safe for people with diabetes to add green tea to their routine? Or would they need to clear it with their doctor first?
It's always a smart move to talk to your doctor before making any big changes to your diet, especially if you're dealing with a health condition like diabetes. Green tea could potentially be a valuable tool in managing the disease, but it's never a replacement for medical advice or treatments.
That's a great reminder. Green tea is promising, but it's not a miracle cure. Speaking of things it might not cure, I was super surprised to see that the video actually suggests green tea as a potential breath freshener.
Oh, I saw that too.
Is there any truth to that?
Believe it or not, there is. The video focuses on the bacteria fighting power of those catechins in green tea, specifically their ability to suppress the growth of Streptococcus mutans. That's the main culprit behind plaque and cavities.
So maybe a cup of green tea after lunch could be a good alternative to gum or mouthwash.
It's definitely something to consider. It's not going to replace good old brushing and flossing, but it could be a nice addition to your oral hygiene routine.
All right, green tea for fresh breath. Who knew? Now on to a topic that's near and dear to my heart, brain health. The video claims that green tea can actually help protect your brain as you age, maybe even lowering the risk of those scary diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Is there any science to back that up?
Well, there's certainly some intriguing research out there. Studies have shown that green tea can have a protective effect on neurons. Those are the cells that transmit all the information in your brain. And some studies in humans have linked green tea consumption to a lower risk of cognitive decline and neurodegenerative diseases.
So a cup of green tea a day could keep dementia away.
Now, hold on. While those findings are super exciting, we've got to be cautious about overinterpreting them. A lot of this research has been done in test tubes or on animals. To really understand the long-term impact of green tea on the human brain, we need more research, especially long-term studies on actual people.
Okay, so it's promising, but we need more human-focused research to be sure. The video also mentions that green tea might help with memory and overall cognitive function. Any truth to that?
There has been some research suggesting that, but again, like the other brain health claims, more research, especially in humans, is needed to really figure out those long-term effects and the best dosage for getting those cognitive benefits.
Right, so green tea shows promise for the brain, but more evidence is needed. Let's switch gears a bit and talk about heart health. The video makes some pretty bold claims about green tea's ability to lower blood pressure and reduce the risk of heart attacks and strokes. What does the research have to say about those claims?
Well, the video cites some interesting stats from studies showing that people who drink 1 to 3 cups of green tea daily, they seem to have a lower risk of heart attack and stroke compared to those who drink less than 1 cup a day.
That's quite a difference. Does that mean we should all be drinking more green tea for better heart health?
Not so fast. It's important to remember that these studies are observational, meaning they observe patterns in large groups of people, but they can't prove that green tea is directly causing the benefits. It's possible that people who drink green tea regularly also tend to have other healthy habits, like eating a balanced diet or exercising, things that contribute to good heart health overall. So we need more rigorous studies to isolate the specific effects of green tea on the heart.
Right, correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation. But even if we can't say for sure that green tea prevents heart problems, is there any reason to think it could be beneficial for the heart?
Well, there are some plausible mechanisms at play. Research suggests that certain compounds in green tea, particularly catechins, they might help relax blood vessels, which could lead to lower blood pressure. And there's also some evidence that green tea might improve cholesterol levels by lowering what's called LDL cholesterol, that's the bad cholesterol, and increasing HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol.
So green tea is a multitasker when it comes to heart health, potentially impacting blood pressure and cholesterol. That's pretty impressive. But as we've learned, more research is always needed. Now let's move on to something a little more, vanity-focused, skin health. The video suggests that green tea could benefit our skin because of its anti-inflammatory properties. Is there any truth to that?
Well, there's some interesting research on topical application of green tea extracts. Studies show they can have anti-inflammatory effects and might even improve blood circulation in the skin. But whether drinking green tea translates to those same benefits, that's still unclear.
Okay, so maybe I'll stick to drinking my green tea for now. Hold off on the DIY green tea face masks. Speaking of things we ingest, what about caffeine? We all know coffee is like the caffeine king, but the video points out that green tea also has caffeine, just in smaller amounts. How do the two compare?
You're right. Green tea does have caffeine, but it's significantly less than coffee. We're talking about 25 to 35 milligrams of caffeine per cup of green tea, compared to 95 milligrams or more in a cup of coffee.
So for those of us who are a little sensitive to caffeine, but still want that little boost, green tea could be a gentler option.
Exactly. It's a great way to get a moderate lift in mental and physical performance without the jitters or anxiety that some people get with coffee.
Right. Green tea, the calmer, gentler cousin of coffee. But even natural substances can have downsides, right? What are some of the potential risks or side effects of drinking green tea?
That's a great point. Even though green tea is generally considered safe, it's not without its potential downsides, especially if you're drinking excessive amounts. We already talked about the caffeine content, so let's touch on some other things. One thing the video mentions is that those catechins in green tea, the ones with all the benefits, well, they can also interfere with your body's ability to absorb iron from food.
Oh, interesting. Is that a concern for everyone or just specific groups of people?
It's a good question. For most healthy adults, drinking green tea regularly shouldn't be a major problem, but certain groups are more vulnerable to iron deficiencies, so they need to be a little more mindful.
So who should be paying extra attention to their iron intake if they're drinking a lot of green tea?
Think about folks whose bodies have a higher demand for iron. Infants, children, pregnant women, menstruating women, people on dialysis, or anyone dealing with internal bleeding. Iron levels are extra important for those groups.
Got it. So if you're in one of those groups and you love your green tea, definitely talk to your doctor about how to best manage your iron intake. Now, what about medication interactions? The video also warns about green tea potentially interacting with certain medications. What should people be aware of?
It's always smart to be cautious. Green tea, especially in concentrated supplement form, can interact with some medications. The video specifically mentions heart and blood pressure medications, as well as medications for anxiety and depression.
So if you're taking any of those types of medications, it's crucial to talk to your doctor before adding green tea to your routine, right? They can help you figure out if it's safe and advise on the right dosage.
Absolutely. It's always better to err on the side of caution and get your doctor's input.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Now, the video also briefly mentions matcha, this type of green tea that seems to be everywhere these days. How is matcha different from regular green tea?
Matcha is essentially finely ground green tea powder. The way it's grown is unique. The leaves are shaded before harvest, which increases their chlorophyll content. And that's what gives matcha that vibrant green color. It's got a more concentrated flavor and packs a bigger punch when it comes to caffeine and antioxidants compared to regular green tea.
So is matcha like green tea on steroids?
You could say that. It does offer more concentrated benefits, but that also means potentially stronger side effects. So as with anything, moderation is key.
Good point. Now, one last question before we wrap up this part of our deep dive. How much green tea should you drink to get those potential benefits? The video seems to have mixed messages on this.
Yeah, the advice is a bit all over the place. Some studies suggest 1 cup a day is enough, while others recommend 5 or more. The truth is there's no magic number. It depends on what you're hoping to achieve and how your body reacts to green tea.
So it's about finding what works best for you individually. Is there a good way to figure that out?
The best approach is to start slow and listen to your body. Begin with a lower dose, maybe 1 or 2 cups a day, and see how you feel. You can gradually increase your intake if you want, but always pay attention to any side effects. And of course, if you have any concerns, your doctor is always the best resource.
That's great advice. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're getting the benefits of green tea without any negative effects. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the basics of green tea to its potential benefits for weight loss, inflammation, diabetes, brain health, heart health, skin health, even oral health. It seems like green tea has the potential to impact so many aspects of our well-being.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? But it's important to remember that green tea isn't a miracle cure. It's a potentially powerful tool that can be part of a healthy lifestyle. But we need to be realistic about its limitations. And remember that research is always evolving. What we know today might change tomorrow.
That's so true. It's all about staying informed and making choices that are right for you. Join us next time for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll delve even deeper into the specific studies mentioned in that Body Hub video and really examine the evidence behind those bold claims. We'll separate the hype from the facts and help you understand what the research really says about the power of green tea.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of green tea. So in the last part, we explored some of those potential health benefits that have made green tea such a popular beverage. We talked about everything from boosting fat burning to potentially protecting your brain.
Right. We covered a lot of ground. And it seems like green tea could be a real superstar for our health. But I'm really curious to dig into the actual studies behind those claims. Like, how solid is the evidence?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It's easy to get caught up in all the excitement, but it's so important to look beyond the hype and see what the research actually tells us.
Absolutely. So let's roll up our sleeves and dive into those studies. The video mentioned a couple of weight loss studies, and one that really stood out to me was that one where people taking green tea extract saw a 17% increase in fat oxidation. But you mentioned earlier that extracts are much more concentrated than just regular green tea. So can we really apply those findings to everyday tea drinkers?
That's a great point. To really know if sipping on green tea can help us shed those extra pounds, we need studies that look at brewed green tea, not just the extracts. And we need to see those results in a large group of people over a long period of time. Think months or even years, not just a few weeks.
Okay, so long-term studies on a lot of people. That's what we need to really confirm green tea's weight loss potential. What about that study on inflammation and rheumatoid arthritis? That one really piqued my interest because, I've heard so much about the link between chronic inflammation and all sorts of health problems.
It is a fascinating area of research, and that rat study mentioned in the video, it did show some promising results with green tea extract. But we can't just automatically assume those findings would translate to humans. Rats and humans, while both mammals, they have different physiologies, and they can react to substances differently.
So we need to see human studies to know if green tea can really tame inflammation in people. What kind of studies would give us more conclusive evidence?
Ideally, we'd want to see what are called randomized controlled trials, where people with inflammatory conditions like rheumatoid arthritis are randomly assigned to either a group that receives green tea or a control group that doesn't. This type of study helps to isolate the effects of the green tea, and it minimizes bias.
Makes sense. So we're looking for those gold standard human studies to really back up those early promising findings. Now, let's talk diabetes. The video claims that green tea could not only help manage symptoms, but also potentially prevent diabetes altogether. That's a pretty bold statement. What's the science behind those claims?
Well, the video focuses on a few key areas. First, there's some evidence suggesting that green tea might improve insulin sensitivity. Now, insulin, that's the hormone that helps your cells absorb glucose from the bloodstream. And when cells become resistant to insulin, that's when you can start to see high blood sugar and eventually diabetes.
Right, so improving insulin sensitivity could be a key factor in preventing or managing diabetes. How does green tea potentially play a role in that?
Some studies suggest that certain compounds in green tea, particularly those polyphenols, they may actually enhance insulin signaling, making cells more responsive to insulin.
So green tea could be helping our cells do a better job of using insulin. That's incredible. But you mentioned some studies. Is the evidence on green tea and insulin sensitivity strong enough to draw any firm conclusions?
Not quite yet. The research is still in its early stages, and there have been some mixed results. Some studies have shown positive effects on insulin sensitivity, while others haven't. So we need more large-scale, long-term human trials to really determine the true impact of green tea on insulin sensitivity. We need to see those consistent results across different populations and over extended periods to be really confident in those claims.
Okay, so more research is needed. But the potential for green tea to boost insulin sensitivity is definitely exciting. The video also mentioned some potential benefits for the pancreas. Can you remind me what those were?
Of course. So the pancreas, that's the organ that produces insulin. Protecting it is absolutely crucial for preventing and managing diabetes. And some research suggests that those antioxidants in green tea might actually shield pancreatic cells from oxidative stress. That's a type of damage caused by free radicals.
So green tea's antioxidant power could be at work here, protecting those vital insulin-producing cells. Has this protective effect been observed in human studies or mostly in animal models?
There have been some observational studies in humans that link green tea consumption to a reduced risk of pancreatic cancer, which is a good sign, of course. But more research, especially clinical trials, is needed to really determine whether green tea can directly protect pancreatic cells and prevent or delay the onset of diabetes.
Okay, so the evidence is promising but not conclusive yet. What about the claim that green tea can actually help manage existing diabetes?
Well, in addition to those potential benefits we just talked about, green tea's anti-inflammatory properties could also play a role in diabetes management. Chronic inflammation is a major contributor to the development and progression of many chronic diseases, including diabetes.
Right, so if green tea can help reduce inflammation, it could theoretically help people better manage their diabetes.
Exactly. But again, we need more research to confirm this. and to understand the specific mechanisms involved. And it's really important to emphasize that green tea is not a cure for diabetes or a replacement for medical treatment.
That's a really important point. Green tea might be a helpful addition to a diabetes management plan, but it's definitely not a magic bullet. It's essential to work closely with your doctor to create a personalized plan that addresses your specific needs. Now, I have to ask about those breath-freshening claims. I was pretty skeptical at first, but the video points out that green tea can combat the bacteria that cause bad breath and cavities. I brush and floss religiously. But could a cup of green tea really give my oral hygiene routine an extra boost?
It's not as far-fetched as it might sound. Several studies have shown that green tea extracts, they can actually inhibit the growth of Streptococcus mutans. That's the main culprit behind plaque and cavity.
So those catations are really doing double duty, fighting inflammation and bad breath. But if green tea is so good for our mouths, why don't we hear dentists recommending it more often?
Well, while green tea can be a helpful addition to your oral hygiene routine, it's not a replacement for brushing and flossing. And those regular dental checkups, think of it more as an extra layer of protection.
Okay, so green tea can't replace my toothbrush, but it could be a nice complement to my routine. Now let's move on to the brain-boosting benefits of green tea. The video suggests that it could protect against cognitive decline, and even those scary diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I'm always looking for ways to keep my brain sharp as I get older. What does the research say about green tea's brain-protecting power?
Well, there's a growing body of research suggesting that green tea could indeed be good for your brain. Some studies have shown that green tea can have a protective effect on neurons. Those are the cells that transmit all the information in your brain.
So it could be helping to keep those brain cells healthy and functioning properly? Are these studies mostly done on animals, or have they looked at human brains too?
There have been some observational studies in humans that link green tea consumption to a lower risk of cognitive decline and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Okay, so there's a correlation, but does that mean green tea is directly causing those benefits? Or could it be something else?
That's the tricky thing with observational studies. They can show us associations, but they can't definitively prove cause and effect. It's possible that people who drink green tea regularly also happen to have other healthy habits that contribute to good brain health, like staying mentally active or engaging in regular physical activity. We need more rigorous studies to isolate the effects of green tea and determine its true impact on brain health.
Okay, so while we can't say for sure that green tea prevents cognitive decline, the research so far is definitely intriguing. The video also claimed that green tea could improve memory and overall cognitive function. Is there any evidence to back that up?
There have been some studies, mostly small-scale and short-term, that suggest green tea consumption might be associated with improvements in working memory, attention, and mood. However, more research, particularly large, well-designed studies that follow people over a long period, is needed to confirm those findings.
So while green tea might offer a temporary cognitive boost, we need more research to know if those benefits last and what the optimal dose might be. What about the claims that green tea can benefit heart health by lowering blood pressure and reducing the risk of heart attacks and strokes? The video cited some pretty impressive statistics on that.
Those statistics in the video are definitely eye-catching. They suggest that people who drink 1 to 3 cups of green tea a day have a lower risk of those cardiovascular events compared to those who drink less. But we have to remember that those studies are observational, so they can't prove that green tea is directly causing those benefits.
Right, so those healthy habits we talked about earlier, they could be playing a role as well. But are there any biological mechanisms that could explain how green tea might benefit the heart?
There are some plausible theories. Some research suggests that certain compounds in green tea, particularly the catechins, they might help relax blood vessels, which could then lead to lower blood pressure. And there's also some evidence that green tea might help improve cholesterol levels by lowering LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, and increasing HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol.
So green tea could be working on multiple fronts to support heart health. That's pretty amazing. But as we've discussed, more research is always needed to confirm these potential benefits and figure out the optimal dosage for achieving them. Now, I'm curious about the skin health claims. The video highlighted a study showing that topical application of green tea extracts can reduce inflammation and improve blood circulation in the skin. But does drinking green tea have the same effects?
That's a great question, and it's one that researchers are still exploring. While the research on topical application of green tea extracts is promising, we need more studies to know if drinking green tea can really give you that same glowing complexion.
Okay, so while sipping green tea might not be a substitute for a good skincare routine, its antioxidant power could still be beneficial for the skin. Now, let's talk about caffeine again. The video pointed out that green tea contains caffeine, but in smaller amounts than coffee. Can you remind me how much caffeine is in a typical cup of green tea?
Absolutely. Green tea typically contains about 25 to 35 milligrams of caffeine per cup, compared to 95 milligrams or more in a cup of coffee.
So green tea could be a good option for those of us who want a gentle pick-me-up, without the jitters or anxiety that can sometimes come with coffee. What about the potential downsides of green tea? We talked about the possibility of it interfering with iron absorption. Are there any other risks we should be aware of?
We did touch on that iron absorption issue, and it's definitely something to keep in mind, especially for those at risk of iron deficiency. But for most healthy adults, drinking green tea in moderation shouldn't pose a significant problem. Another potential downside is the caffeine content, which can cause problems for people who are sensitive to caffeine or consume large amounts.
Right, too much caffeine can lead to anxiety, insomnia, and other unpleasant side effects. The video also warned about potential interactions between green tea and certain medications. Can you elaborate on that?
Certainly, green tea, especially in concentrated supplement form, can interact with certain medications, particularly those that affect the heart and blood pressure, or medications for anxiety and depression. So it's crucial to talk to your doctor before adding green tea to your routine if you are taking any medications, just to ensure that it's safe and to determine the appropriate dosage.
That's great advice. It's always better to be safe than sorry. And your doctor is the best resource for personalized advice. Now, before we move on, I wanted to touch on matcha again. We talked about how it's basically powdered green tea with a more intense flavor and higher levels of caffeine and antioxidants. Since it's so concentrated, does that mean you need to drink less of it to get the same benefits?
That's a logical assumption. But the research on matcha is still in its early stages, and there's no definitive answer yet on the optimal dosage. As with any form of green tea, it's wise to start with a small amount and see how your body responds.
So listen to your body and don't overdo it. Now, let's get back to that question of how much green tea you should drink to reap those potential benefits. We know there's no magic number, but is there a general range that most people can aim for?
The recommendations vary quite a bit, but a good starting point for most healthy adults is probably 1 to 3 cups of green tea per day. You can adjust your intake based on your individual goals and how your body reacts.
So start slow, listen to your body, and adjust as needed. That's a great takeaway. We've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive, delving into the research behind green tea's potential benefits for weight loss, inflammation, diabetes, brain health, heart health, skin health, even oral health. It's been a fascinating journey so far.
It really has. We've explored some intriguing research, but we've also highlighted the need for more studies, especially those large-scale, long-term human trials, to really confirm these findings and determine the optimal dosage for achieving specific health benefits.
Exactly. Green tea holds a lot of promise. But it's important to approach these claims with a healthy dose of skepticism. And remember that research is constantly evolving. What we know today might change tomorrow.
Well said. Now, in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to shift gears a bit from the science and explore some practical tips for incorporating green tea into your daily routine in a way that's enjoyable and sustainable.
I'm looking forward to that. It's been fascinating exploring the science behind green tea, but I'm ready to get some practical advice on how to make it a part of my life. So join us next time for the final part of our green tea deep dive, where we'll discuss different types of green tea, brewing methods, and tips for making this healthy beverage a delicious part of your daily routine. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of green tea. We've spent the last 2 parts really exploring the science behind its potential health benefits. And honestly, my brain is kind of buzzing with all this new information.
I bet we've covered a lot of ground, from weight loss and inflammation to brain and heart health. It really seems like green tea has the potential to impact so many aspects of our well-being.
It really is impressive. But all this science, it can feel a little overwhelming, especially when it comes to actually putting it into practice. Like, how do we take all this knowledge and make it actionable? How do we actually incorporate green tea into our lives in a way that feels good and makes a difference?
That's the key question, isn't it? All the science in the world doesn't do us much good if we don't know how to actually apply it to our daily lives.
Exactly. So let's ditch the textbooks and get practical. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think the first step is simple but crucial. Find a type of green tea that you actually enjoy drinking. There's a whole world of variety out there, from delicate sencha to earthy matcha and everything in between.
That's so true. I've definitely had some green teas that I haven't loved. It shouldn't feel like a chore, right?
Exactly.
It should be something you actually look forward to. Any tips for navigating that vast world of green tea?
I think experimentation is key. Try different varieties, explore different brands, and see what speaks to your taste buds. Some people, they prefer a more grassy or vegetal flavor, while others might lean towards something a little smoother or sweeter.
Okay, so find your green tea soulmate. Once you've found a tea you love, what about brewing? Does that make a difference in terms of the flavor or the caffeine content?
Absolutely. Brewing is an art form in itself. Things like water temperature and steeping time. They can significantly impact both the flavor and the caffeine content of your tea.
I've definitely noticed that. Sometimes my green tea ends up tasting really bitter, and I wonder if I'm doing something wrong.
It's likely the water temperature or steeping time. As a general rule, hotter water and longer steeping times, they extract more caffeine and tannins, and those tannins, they contribute to that bitter taste.
Okay, that makes sense. So if you want a milder, less bitter flavor, you should use cooler water and steep for a shorter amount of time.
Exactly. And if you're sensitive to caffeine, those shorter steeping times are especially important. You can also experiment with cold brewing, which usually results in a smoother, less astringent flavor, and typically has lower caffeine content.
Oh, I love cold brewed green tea. It's so refreshing, especially in the summer. Speaking of timing, is there an optimal time of day to drink green tea?
It really depends on your individual preferences and goals. If you're looking for a caffeine boost to kickstart your day, or power through an afternoon slump, drinking it in the morning or early afternoon might be ideal.
But I've heard that drinking green tea too close to bedtime can interfere with sleep.
That's true for some people. If you're sensitive to caffeine, you might want to avoid green tea in the evening, or at least opt for a decaffeinated variety.
Got it. Listen to your body and adjust your green tea timing accordingly. Now, we talked earlier about that conflicting advice on how much green tea you should drink to get those potential benefits. Some studies say 1 cup a day is enough. Others recommend 5 or more. What's your take on that?
I think it really highlights the importance of personalization and self-experimentation. There's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to dosage. I think the best approach is to start with a lower dose, maybe 1 or 2 cups a day, and just pay attention to how your body responds.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where you're feeling the benefits without any negative side effects.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, if you have any underlying health conditions, or you're taking medications, it's always wise to talk to your doctor before making any significant changes to your diet, including your green tea intake. They can give you personalized advice based on your specific situation.
That's such important advice. Don't just blindly follow the latest trend or advice. Talk to your doctor and get personalized guidance. Now, beyond just drinking it straight, are there other creative ways to incorporate green tea into our lives?
Absolutely. Green tea is incredibly versatile. You can get creative in the kitchen, use green tea leaves to flavor savory dishes, add matcha powder to smoothies or baked goods. You can even try green tea-infused skincare products for a topical dose of those beneficial antioxidants.
Ooh, I love those ideas.
Yeah.
It's about finding what works for you and making green tea a part of your lifestyle, not just a drink you chug down.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that the benefits of green tea go beyond just the physical, the ritual of preparing and savoring a cup of tea. It can be incredibly calming and mindful.
I totally agree. In our fast-paced world, taking a few moments to slow down, brew a cup of tea, and just be present in the moment, it can be so grounding and restorative.
It's a beautiful practice. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of green tea, I want to leave you with this thought. Don't get bogged down by trying to achieve the perfect green tea routine. It's not about rigid rules or striving for some ideal. It's about finding ways to enjoy green tea, to incorporate it into your life in a way that feels good and sustainable and authentic to you.
That's such a great point. It's about making green tea a part of your life, not just another thing on your to-do list.
Exactly. And like with any new habit or lifestyle change, be patient with yourself. It takes time to find what works best for you. So explore, experiment, and most importantly, enjoy the journey.
Well said. And there you have it, folks. We've taken a deep dive into the world of green tea, exploring the science, the potential benefits, the risks, and the practical tips for making this incredible beverage a part of your life. We hope you found this exploration insightful and inspiring.
I know I have. It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you.
And with you, our listeners. Remember, knowledge is power, and we encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring, and keep discovering all that the world of green tea has to offer.
Until next time, stay curious and happy sipping.